Okay.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that breaks out in a song based on words.
Yeah, that's right.
I drive my wife crazy. She'll say something in a conversation and I'll just start singing a song based off the last word she said. She's like, hey, I'm talking.
Yeah.
I'm like, sorry. It's something that I can't help.
There's a brother, and he would do the. Did I give you Old Trace Cleaning's calendar?
Mm-mm.
I didn't give you one. Oh, I should get you one of those. They used to. It has like a scripture, and then a short meditation, like 150 words.
Yeah.
And then like a lyric or a poem.
That's good. Yeah.
Stands at the bottom, and so he would do this, and people would submit the devotional.
Yeah.
And he would put the little,
Yeah.
he edited it.
Right.
And then he would add the little.
He would just do the throw in at the bottom.
So he was like a walking encyclopedia of hymns and poems and that sort of thing. In his older age, he was laying, he wasn't his deathbed, he was sick. And he was laying in the hospital bed. And he was kind of in and out of consciousness. Well, when the nurses said he does something very strange, whenever someone says something, the last word, he repeats it until he can find a verse or a saw, So and they say it's very mysterious, and all of a sudden it goes mysterious, mysterious, mysterious. God works in mysterious ways, and then he goes quiet again. He kept doing it till he thought of one. So
that's good.
Anyway, all right, got a little story tucked away in the podcast. No. All right. Hello, welcome back to Enjoy the Book of Life. We're here again with Brother Kurt Pinnix, and we're going to be talking about a grow and shine truth, something that we've been able to apply into our lives and seen fruit, seen growth, either in our lives or in other people's lives. So again, the Bible is a practical book, something to be applied. So, jumping right in, what is your grow and shine idea?
So, we've talked about, how my life changed and how I was getting more involved in doing the things that I needed to do, and that led to people asking me to do things. And these are things that I was terribly uncomfortable with the idea of. Like, hey, will you teach this class? Well, no, I'm not a teacher. Like, I don't know very much. I can teach kids, but, I don't want to teach adults. They know more than me. I'm very uncomfortable in this. But after having a conversation with one of my good friends, and we talked about this on our podcast recently, he said that when you are dealing with things that involve the Great Commission, what if you changed your default answer from no until God tells me to yes until God tells me not to? And I thought about it for a minute, and I was like, well, that's a hard truth, right? That's not something I want to hear right now. I'm looking for ways to say no to these things. And this is you saying, well, no, just say yes until God tells you no.
Yeah.
Well, no, I want to say no until God tells me I have to.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, I think just pausing there, I like that, your honesty in that.
Yeah.
Right? In saying, I'm trying to find ways to say no. And that battle within us, when it comes to applying these truths, this grow and shine. It's not always like, oh, here it is, check, boom, and all of a sudden I'm growing, I'm shining, right?
Yeah.
But we have these hindrances along the way. But I like that.
Honesty is my thing. I'm a flawed human, and God is using me anyway. So this idea that, well, if it's part of the Great Commission, God already told you to do that, right? So why should you question whether He wants you to do something that's part of the Great Commission? He already said to do it.
Yeah.
So unless He tells you not to, why are you not doing it? So it changes your mentality of looking to find ways to get out of stuff to, well, is there any way that God would not want me to do this?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh man, so now I have to do all this stuff. So I end up teaching a class for adults on Sunday night, and then that leads to being asked to preach some on Sunday nights. I'm like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. And then I'm reminded, you better pray about that. That's not something that you can say no to without praying.
Yeah.
And so I prayed about it, and God's like, ugh. So He sent me to the passage where He's actually asking Moses to lead the people. And Moses said, but, whoa, God, I'm not a good speaker now. And so I told God the same thing, like, I'm not a public speaker. This is not something I do.
Yeah.
I teach children. Like, I don't teach adults, and I'm not standing in a pulpit in front of all these people that in the church I grew up in that know I'm an idiot. Like, Like, they know me. They've known me since I was a baby. Like, they're not going to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's God's response to Moses? Moses, who made your mouth?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, man. And so that passage just kind of right between the eyes, like, who are you to question God when he's asking you to do something?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, I'm totally ill-prepared for this. I don't think I'm going to be good at it, but if this is what I'm asked to do, I'm not allowed to say no anymore because I'm truly going to believe this thing. And so it's taken me on a journey of the past 2 years, from teaching a Sunday night class to preaching on Sunday nights to being asked to be the youth director. And this Sunday I'm preaching my first Sunday morning, and it's Easter Sunday. That's terrifying, right? If I'm just being honest about it, because like, I'm still this flawed person that God's using me, but I don't feel qualified. I don't feel like I'm the best person for the job. But we often see that God's not interested in the people that are best for the job.
Yeah.
That his strength is made perfect through my weakness.
Yeah.
Which is why I was picked, right?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing about me that says that guy should be a preacher. That guy should be teaching people about the Bible. That guy should be showing people the way to live their life. There's nothing about me that screams that, right? Mm-hmm. And so God chooses to use me even though I'm flawed, but he does it because I'm flawed.
Yeah.
He does it because his strength is made perfect through my weakness. The things that I'm not good at is where he can show up. If the only things I do for God are things that I'm comfortable with, I'm not glorifying God, I'm glorifying Kurt, right? So if I only do the things that I feel like doing or that are comfortable for me or things that I feel like I'm good at, I'm not leaving God any room for glory. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, hey, this is what Kurt's good at. Y'all watch me do this thing that Kurt's good at.
Right.
And so to completely rely on God puts all the glory on him. Because if I'm able to get up there and do that, it's not because of me. I'm terrified, right? The first time I preached in front of people on a Sunday night, I tried to practice my sermon about 20 minutes before I got on, and I couldn't say a word out loud. I was in a room by myself looking at the paper, and I could not say the words out loud.
Yeah.
And then I got behind the pulpit and preached for 45 minutes. People were like, hey, you shouldn't preach that long. Yeah. But before I got up there, I literally couldn't say a word out loud. So that's God. And that's God saying, hey, if I ask you to do something, I'm going to get you through it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that truth has completely changed my life in a way that I've allowed God to use me to do things that I'm perfectly incapable of on my own.
Yeah.
There's nothing about me that says I should be able to do these things.
I think one of the things when you were talking about this idea of saying yes to these opportunities is when Paul, through his time, he talks about open doors. Mm-hmm. And he talks about a door of opportunity is kind of this first, praying for a door of opportunity and actually looking for these. Like, where is God opening doors? Right? Oh, look at this. Here's an open area. And then to walk through it.
Yeah.
Then, once you walk through that, he says, pray for a door of utterance. Mm-hmm. Right? That I'd be able to communicate what God has given me. Right? Then he says, pray for an effectual door. Right? Mm-hmm. That we want a good effect. We want a harvest for the Lord. Right?
Yeah.
And so, the old, when Solomon would build a city, he had these 3 gates. You can go and see, like in the Jezreel Valley, they have this old one of Solomon's chariot cities. Yeah. And you can go to the ruins, and you can see this where the wall was so thick, it allowed for 3 gates. And so if the invading army broke through one, they still, you could keep attacking them as they had to break through the second and then the third. And so you kind of have this picture where Paul's praying for all these doors to be open, right? That there's an opportunity, there's utterance, and that it's effective, right? Yeah. And then you gain the victory. But again, it's like I can't open those doors, right? It's praying that God opens the doors. But even when, this main point about no and yes, when a door opens, right? We're sitting there hemming and hawing, right? Instead of saying, hey, let's blaze forward. Yeah.
Well, and the idea, one of the things I talked about in one of my sermons is motivated perception. I see the things that I'm looking for, right? So the example I use is look at everything in this room and pick out all the things that are green. And so you start counting and counting, and I give people time to count. Then I say, all right, tell me how many things that are red. Oh, you asked about green.
Yeah.
So, well, you didn't know how many things are red because that's not what you were looking for.
Yeah.
So if I'm not looking for opportunities to serve God, I'm not going to see them.
Mm.
And so you talk about Paul praying that prayer, that's motivated perception.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the psychological term for I see the things that I'm looking for. If I'm not looking for something, why would I see it?
Right.
So if I'm not looking for these opportunities, I'm not going to see them and I'm not going to do them. So am I praying for these opportunities? Am I saying, hey, God, what do you want me to do today?
Mm-hmm.
Give me something to do for you today.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I like to pray in the morning is, hey, God, send me somebody that needs your love today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think that's so simple. And we're talking about grow and shine.
Yeah.
That's something anyone can do. And again, it takes the burden off of me.
Right.
Right? It's saying, Lord, send me someone. Give me people to pray for. Anyone you bring to mind, I'll pray for them.
Yeah.
Right? Or here's someone, you bring someone, I'll show them your love. Yeah.
Well, it's this mentality of, I'm here to work.
Yeah.
Like, hey, God, whatever you need me to do today, give it to me, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go into a day with that mindset when I come across that opportunity, all right, well, I got to do it. And if I pray to God to send me those opportunities, He's going to send them. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, it's going to be something that's terribly inconvenient. Yeah. And I think God has a sense of humor in that way.
Yeah.
Like when I'm at school, I teach PE, and at one of the schools I teach at, there's a lot of kids there. And so I may have a third grader come in, and he might have slapped 2 people while he's in line. Yeah. And it's my job to go teach this kid that that's not okay.
Yeah.
But that's probably the kid that needs love. And so while I'm trying to help him understand something, he says, oh, you're bald-headed and ugly. Well, I am, but maybe we don't say that. And so now that's the kid that needs love that day, right? Yeah. And God sends him to me for that purpose. And so I'm like, all right, God, I got you. This is the kid that needs love today. That's fine. He did call me ugly. I'm not mad about it, but that's the kid you sent me, right? So being prepared for these opportunities is the whole mindset that you go into them with. Yeah. Now, if I'm having a bad day, I haven't prayed that morning, when that kid calls me bald and ugly, just go over there and sit down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
Because I'm not prepared for it. Mm-hmm. I'm not in the mindset of, well, maybe this kid doesn't get love at home. Maybe this kid just needs somebody to show that they care about him a little bit. Mm. And so it completely changes the way that I live and the decisions I make based on being prepared for those opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's what they are. They're opportunities.
Yeah.
They're not things that cause me to have a bad day. They're not things that are annoying about my job. They're opportunities. Mm. And when we see them that way, it completely changes our life.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the phrase you used, I'm here to work. Right?
Right.
Yeah, and in Isaiah, when it says, those who wait on the Lord, He'll mm-hmm. renew their strength.
Right.
That word wait, it's not like I'm sitting around waiting mm-hmm. for Him. It's like a waiter, or like a lady in waiting, someone who serves the mm-hmm. Lord. And so here you're saying, I'm here to serve. Again, it may be super inconvenient.
Right.
But God says, if you're willing to serve, I'll take care of the strength.
Right.
Right? I like to use the example. I used to do roofing mm-hmm. up in Michigan. Now up there we could say roughing. Right? Yeah. So I was a rougher for summer. And when I never showed up to the job, and my boss said, hey, where's your ladder?
Right.
Why didn't you bring your ladder?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't bring the ladder. You bring the ladder. Right? You're the boss. You have the equipment. Yeah. I just show up to roof. Mm-hmm. And so God does the same thing with us. If I show up to the job site, He says, I'll supply the strength. Mm-hmm. I'll supply the resources that you need so that you can do this. But again, it starts with that, hey, I'm here to serve.
Yeah. Yeah. And God, like you said, bringing all the equipment is what brings Him His glory. Yeah. Right? Yeah. There's nothing about me that's special. Yeah. It's just that I'm willing to say yes when most people aren't willing to. Mm. That doesn't make me overqualified. That doesn't make me better than anybody. I'm just willing to say yes and trust that God's going to give me the things that I need to do the work He has for me.
Yeah, and like you said, you see the difference when you don't come into it with that.
Sure.
Right? It is and again, working with kids is such a good one because there's such an obvious difference in your response when you come to it. I'm here as a servant of the Lord.
Right, and just transparency, I don't get it right every day.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? There are days where, hey, I didn't pray that prayer this morning,
Yeah.
and it shows in my day, and the way that I treat people, and the way that I respond to situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't get it right every day.
Yeah.
And not to say that makes me less of a Christian or that makes me less of a man. We all make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just to point out that the way I start my day and the way that I view my day, it shapes those opportunities for me.
Yeah.
And so if I don't get that time in the morning where I'm just like, hey, God, send me somebody that needs love. I'm willing to work for you today. So it's like showing up to a job where I'm going to have to be working in the woods, but I didn't wear pants and boots that day.
Right.
I showed up in shorts and flip-flops.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm wondering why my legs are getting torn up all day long when I didn't show up prepared to work that day.
Yeah.
And so it's just a mentality, and it's just an approach to life that, in the past 2 years and change, it's completely changed my outlook on everything.
Mm.
I have to say yes if it's in the Great Commission unless God says no.
Yeah.
And
which is interesting. I think that is interesting because sometimes God does shut doors.
Right. And that's completely possible.
Yeah.
And, I have to listen when he says that too.
Right.
Because it might be something I'm super fired up about.
Yeah. Well, like Paul, a whole section of Asia Minor was shut off to him. And he's like, no, you got to go all the way to Macedonia right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could be something that I'm super fired up about. It's because it's something that I'm good at.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's selfish, right? There's selfish ambition there. It's, hey, people will see me doing this great thing.
Right.
I'm like, it's not about you.
Yeah.
And God has to remind me of that sometimes. Like, hey, the things that you're good at, I'm not interested in.
And again, I think that can be as difficult, right? Where there's this pull of I'm gravitating towards that, and to say, no, I just want to do what God wants me to do.
For sure.
Whether that's saying yes or saying no.
Right.
Yeah. Going back to that, this was such a helpful truth for me, realizing the two commands of the children in the wilderness, children of Israel in the wilderness. When the cloud moves, you move. When the cloud stays, you stay.
Yeah.
And so recognizing, don't stay when he moves and don't move when he stays.
Exactly.
Some of us are movers and some of us are stayers.
Right.
And the stayers have to practice moving and the movers have to practice staying.
Exactly.
And we get the equivalent in the New Testament. Don't grieve the Spirit and don't quench the Spirit.
Right.
When the Spirit says yes and I say no, I grieve him.
Mm-hmm.
When the Spirit says no and other way around. When the Spirit says yes and I say no, I'm quenching the Spirit.
Right.
When the Spirit says no and I say yes, I'm grieving the Spirit. Yeah, and so that idea of being led by the Spirit,
yep,
and saying I'm for you. I'm Spirit controlled, right? I'm all free for you.
Yeah.
That's the ideal. And
the common theme that I find of things that God really wants me to do are the ones that scare me the most when I'm asked. Like preaching this Sunday for Easter, my first time ever on Sunday morning, like I'm nervous about that, right? That's way out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like I've preached at my church and I've preached on Sunday night. These are things that I'm getting to where I'm comfortable with, right?
Yeah.
And now that I'm comfortable with that, God's like, here's something that you won't be comfortable with. Let's go do this.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm starting to get a hang of it. I'm starting to get a feel for things. And then now you're asking me to do something I'm completely uncomfortable with, but that's the point.
Yeah.
And that's what I have to remind myself, because when I was asked to do it, I was like, oh, no, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that. It's Easter Sunday. There's going to be a lot of guests there. That's a lot of pressure, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that may not be saved in that church.
Yeah.
And God's like, that's the point.
Yeah.
That's why you're going there. And so, God just uses unlikely people to do the things that he wants done. And I'm one of those unlikely people. Like, I don't feel like I'm worthy of that. I don't feel like I'm capable of that, but that's the point.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of Christians miss out on, is that God's not using you for anything because you're not willing to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sideline Christians the way that I lived for so long, because I wasn't willing to get out of my comfort zone. I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do to serve God in the way that he wanted me to. And that's a hard truth for people. It's still a hard truth for me every time I get asked to do something I don't feel like doing.
Yeah.
Right? But you say yes, and God gets you through it, and you look back and you're like, I'm really glad I did that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had that nice, real practical prayer, right? Mm-hmm. Lord, send me someone to love, right? What other, like if someone hears this and say, this is good, I need this.
Yeah.
What are some other ways to help promote this in a daily decision towards saying yes?
So I pray that when God gives me these opportunities, that I won't fight back so much, right? Because I know that eventually God's going to make me say yes. I know that eventually. I ask that I don't delay it so long, right? You look at Jonah. Jonah went the complete opposite direction. He's like, I'm not doing that. And then he ends up in the belly of a whale, right?
Yeah.
So the prayer is, Lord, don't make me end up in the belly of a whale so that I'll do the things you ask me to do. Right? Yeah. Don't make me have to do dumb stuff just to eventually say yes anyway.
Right.
Right? Because if we know what the end result is going to be, everything we do in fighting it, it just delays the work that God has for us. So help me to be faithful enough to not immediately push back against something that I'm uncomfortable with. Yeah. And like I said, I still have to fight that, right? I'm terribly nervous about Sunday, but God's asked me to do that, and I've prayed, don't push back. Just let your yes be yes when you're asked, and if God don't want you to do it, then you won't do it. He won't allow you to do it, right? Or it'll fail miserably because it's something that you want to do and not something that God wants you to do. So I guess just praying in that mindset and developing that mindset over time that even when something's uncomfortable, I'm okay with doing that. And also understanding that you don't have to do these great public things to be in the will of God.
Yeah.
Right? Not everybody's called to preach. Not everybody's called to teach. But you're called to show the rest of the world who God is. Yeah. Right? So if I was only teaching, that's an opportunity when that kid's going around slapping people and calling me bald and ugly for me to show him love anyway. Right? So everybody has situations where they can show the love of God.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be some grand spectacle. It doesn't have to be doing a podcast. It doesn't have to be preaching. You have a sphere of influence, whether you recognize it or not, of people that you come into contact with on a day-to-day basis that you can show them the love of Christ, and it can change them. It doesn't have to be some great big grand thing. It's a mentality and how you approach your day of, hey, this person in my office is difficult to deal with. But rather than meeting them with that difficulty, I'm going to show them grace. I'm going to show them mercy, and I'm going to show them love in spite of how they treat me. So there's opportunities everywhere if you are looking for those opportunities, right? Motivated perception tells us that if I'm looking for those opportunities, I'm going to see them. And the understanding is that as a Christian, I'm not waiting on other people to share the gospel. Right? I talked about earlier, I wanted to be a journalist going into college, right? I wanted to write about sports. And I was writing for the Reflector, the Mississippi State newspaper. I was doing internships at some different places. And I eventually figured out that I don't want to write about other people doing things. I want to do those things. So at that point, I was like, well, I want to be a coach. I want to have an impact on the things that are actually happening rather than writing about them. I don't want to be on the sideline during a game. I want to be in the game. And a lot of us have that mentality as Christians, right? We want to critique, or we want to look at the things that other people do for the kingdom and say, oh, well, that's good, or oh, that's not very good. While we sit on the sidelines and do nothing. I did that for a long time. And every Christian has a place in the fight. Whether it's something just incredibly small, you still have a sphere of influence. You have things that you can be doing for the kingdom. And that's one thing I try to impress upon the kids that I teach, is that just because you're not doing some great public thing, you don't have to. You have a place that God predestined you to be in, that you have people that you can reach on a day-to-day basis. And none of us are called to stand on the sideline and watch somebody else further the kingdom. Like the Great Commission is for every Christian. It's not for those that are special or those that think they are called. Everybody's called. You may not be called to preach, but you're called to do something, right? God didn't say, all right, you're saved, you can go to church every week, you can pray every day, you can read your Bible every day, but you don't have to talk to other people. None of those people exist, right? God didn't make that mandate. Go and tell and baptize everybody, right? And we all have special ways that we can do that. And it's going to be a way that you feel like you're unqualified to do. And I think that's important to recognize, is people a lot of times say, well, I don't feel called to do that. Well, if we say yes until it's no, has God told you no? Or did you tell them no?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's something that I've had to fight, right? Because I'm like, I don't feel like God's really called me to do that. Which is just code for Kurt's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people give you that answer and you're like, did you pray about that? Or is that just your flesh?
Yeah.
Right?
And you see that difference when you see, Moses is calling. And then you see someone like Elisha. Mm-hmm. Elijah comes over, throws the mantle on him, starts walking away. Elisha has to run after him and say, hey, whoa, what's going on? I want to come with you. And he goes, he has this huge yoke of oxen that he's plowing this field. He's in the middle of harvest season, right?
Yeah.
Like, they just got done with a drought. This is a farmer's, we need to do this crop right now.
Right.
Like, he was not needed more ever on the history of that farm. And he slaughters the oxen, he burns it, and he's like, I'm all in. And so you see that drastic difference. And you talked about Jonah. Here's Jonah. He runs the opposite way. He's even further on that end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So you have these reactions, and I think looking into myself and saying, how do I respond when this comes, and seeing the good examples and learning from the bad examples.
Yep.
And again, like you said, some days I'm over here and some days I'm over there. And some decisions are a little easier for me to do there and than there. But again, knowing that God's not going to cast you immediately, like you see this in the life of Abraham. First, God calls him to give up his homeland. Mm-hmm. And then he calls him to give up his father. Mm-hmm. Calls him to give up Lot.
Yep.
And he calls him to give up Ishmael. Then he calls him to give up Isaac.
Yep.
Right? He didn't just jump to Isaac.
Right.
Right? And he showed himself to be faithful. And like you've been saying in your own life, where this opportunity, then the Sunday nights, then all of a sudden on Easter, and so you can see God working it and grow. He didn't just throw you right in front of 1,000 people.
He's working for my good, right?
Yeah.
He's leading me there little by little.
Yeah.
And one of the things I always tell the youth about is I love the story of Joshua, right? He's a warrior. Yeah. He's an army leader. He's not prepared to lead the people of Israel across the Jordan River, right? There's nothing that he's done to train for that. There's no prep course for this. But Moses says, hey, you're the guy.
Yeah.
And what's he tell him? Be courageous.
Yeah.
And why does he tell him that? Because he's going to have to be, right? This is something that scares you. It should scare you, but you're going to have to be courageous. And so...
And he says, the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And that's what Jesus says in the commission.
Yep. Same thing.
Yeah. To the end of the earth. Yeah.
And so fear is a part of what we are doing here. It's not something that should keep you from doing things. It's just there to help you understand that you in and of yourself are not enough to do the things that God wants you to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you have to have help.
Yeah.
And the things that you don't have to have help for, like we said earlier, they don't glorify God.
Yeah.
If I can go do something by myself, where's the glory in God in that? Mm-hmm. So he's told to be courageous because he's going to have to be. Yeah. The things that God is asking you to do should frighten you a little bit, and that's okay. That's the point, right? And it took me a while to figure that out, that, I shouldn't be afraid when I serve God. Well, Joshua was told, don't be scared because, hey, the things that I'm asking you to do are going to scare you. Like, that's the point. Yeah. Because by yourself, you're not enough, and you need to understand that. Yeah. And so that gives me comfort in times of, like now, where I'm very nervous. And, I have people that I can lean on and people that, I send my sermons to prove them, and you're one of them, and I really appreciate that, to have the guidance of people that I can trust to help me understand things and better word things, and I'm not trying to do it on my own. Yeah. And I recognize that in and of myself, I'm not enough, but God has placed people in my life that I can go to and they can say, hey, this needs work, or this needs to be done better, or I wouldn't say it like that. And it's important for me to have those relationships, but God put those relationships in my life. Yeah. Yeah. Like a guy from Michigan by way of Canada.
That's right.
That is a good friend now because we met in Sturgis. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so God gives you the tools that you need in your life if you're willing to do the work. Yeah. Like you said earlier, He supplies the things you need.
Yeah.
And so the things that I need are people to proofread my stuff because I'm